Can you chat?
Always. Hello. So upset.
I can't speak.
It's a sad day.
You know, I had like such little hope that Kamala would win, and I still feel like absolute shit today. So,
Well, because she lost in such an extreme fashion.
yeah, he
It wasn't
swept.
close. It wasn't close.
No, every swing state.
Every swing state, groups that Biden had done okay in, she lost ground on.
Yes.
I mean, it was a loss. I gotta say, though, I almost feel like it's better this way. When you almost win something, it's worse because you're like, what if the margin is so small it feels like attainable? At least we know there was no fucking way.
There was no fucking way.
Like, it wasn't like if someone campaigned a little harder or if this, campaign goal really hit. It's like, no, it was over before it began.
And there are a number of reasons it was over before it began.
Hundreds of reasons it was over before it began. I think primarily because no one thought it was over before it began. I think delusion probably played a much larger role in this election than people will say.
I think that the Democratic Party thinks it's on such a moral high ground.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we can literally put up anybody and it will be better than Trump.
And I think it reminds me, the other day I was doing something for work and this woman was like giving my client and I information, and she literally talked to us like we were 5 years old. And it was so condescending. And it was interesting because after I felt like she was condescending, but it's not my place to say that. And my client was like, oh my God, like, was that woman so condescending? Like, it turned me off from like working with her. And I was like, yeah, no, she was. And I had this epiphany this morning that I think Democrats to Republicans or undecided voters kind of came across, and myself included, as like morally condescending.
In what way?
Like, how could you vote for this person, like this criminal? Like, if you're just devoid of ethics and morals, you would vote for this person, which like you clearly aren't. So obviously you're going to vote for like the moral person here. And they made it feel so condescending. I think not all, I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of people felt like talked down to from an ethics perspective. And people who are talked down to get pissed off and then shut off. Because now they're holding firm, like they're digging their heels in, rather than like approaching it from an actual conversational perspective. They're like, fuck you. I'm not morally defunct. I'm not a racist. I'm not a Nazi. And so they're not really absorbing what you're saying because they're so dead set on like doing what they're going to do. That's my armchair expert version.
Yeah, I just think like, again, I think maybe Kamala could have been great. Like, was I obsessed with her? No, but like maybe she could have been great, but she had like 6 months to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Not even.
Mm-hmm.
What, 4 months?
I think between 4 and 6. I don't know the exact number, but yeah.
And so, and it was just like, what is it called in the monarchy, where it's just like someone's just picked for you rather than a democracy?
She was anointed.
Yes, she was just anointed.
Mm-hmm.
And like the people didn't really have any say. And the Democratic Party, I mean, they didn't really have a choice, because if they don't go with her, then like they lose everything that they'd already built with Biden. But like it was just like a lose-lose from the jump. Had we have picked somebody else, who knows where we could have been, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But it was such a, I knew from when the first polls were coming in, did I not?
You did. We sat in my bed eating blizzards.
We were watching together from the beginning.
From the beginning.
And she was not doing as well as Biden did in 2020 in literally any county.
Not one.
Ever.
Any county ever.
Perhaps it ended differently. I shut off the TV at a certain point because I was considering electrocuting myself with the power cord.
Although you did change the lighting on our TV in our bedroom, which was much appreciated. So it wasn't a total loss of an evening.
Okay, I'm sorry. We climb into your bed. We have Diet Coke and a glass of wine, much like any
American probably had last
American
night.
probably had in their hands. You turn on the TV and there is a blue filter covering the entire screen. Steve Kornacki from MSNBC, who runs the map, was wearing what was supposed to be a white button down and khakis, and instead he was wearing a light purple button down and gray pants.
I didn't see it as dramatically as you did, but once you changed the TV, I definitely saw a difference.
I didn't even want to say what it was. I called my husband in and I said, "Do you see what I see on the television here? What's wrong with this picture?"
What I see.
Your husband stood there and looked at it and was like, "I don't see anything wrong." My husband stood there and looked at it and said, "Everyone is purple."
Well, I think because we've just been so indoctrinated. That's been our TV for years at this point.
Yeah, I don't know why it looked like that or why neither of you noticed, but I was so confused and I couldn't watch. You couldn't watch
The Lost in bad color.
No, but that was apparently the only blue wave we were going to see that night.
Yeah, you should have left it.
I'm sure that would have made a huge difference. I did want to say, because I got some good stuff off of Facebook, always.
Oh, always. Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
The group that gives me most of my dilemmas gave me something fascinating today in the comments mainly. I won't read all of them because there are 700. But they just wrote this morning at 7:30 a.m., "Good morning" with an American flag.
Okay.
And that set off
the people.
Someone wrote, "As a woman raising a daughter in Texas, I can assure you it's not a good morning." Then that got a lot of likes and a lot of loves. People saying retweet. Someone else wrote, "I voted for the health of my kids, the food we put into their bodies, and the regulations that need to be put in place. I'd love to see a woman president in my lifetime, and I have no doubt that we will, but Kamala isn't the one." Okay.
That's what the votes have said. We get it.
Yep.
Do you think she'll run again?
I feel like it's like, God, after all that, she's like in a new state every hour. Like, wouldn't you just be tired?
Yeah.
This person wrote, a lot of people are talking about their food and how like Trump has a plan that's going to make food cleaner.
Yeah, he looks like someone who's conscious of his health.
Yeah.
When I look at Trump, I think health food.
This person wrote, some women will continue to suffer and not get the care they need. Of course, privileged white women don't care about that, like the majority of you privileged white women in this group. Let's call it how it is. Whew.
You don't know me like that.
Zinger. This person wrote, "I'm a pro-choice Republican who voted Trump. He won't ban abortion. He's never said he will." And he was riding hard on the fact that he was like, "I want to leave it up to the states." So I think that is partially why
people felt comfortable.
Like, he wasn't like, "I want to do a national abortion ban." That I think would have just been dumb for him. Like, there are probably
benefited from at least 12 abortions. I don't think he's in any position to ban them.
Yeah, no, he's like, I love
abortions. Big fan. Love your work.
So yeah, he's saying give it up to the states, and I think probably the majority of Republicans are, I don't know if they would say they're pro-choice, but they're not pro a ban.
Yeah, they're like, do as you will.
And
like,
so,
don't.
Right. Do as you will, but like, don't, though.
Don't.
They're pro-don't.
Pro-don't.
This woman wrote, "Can someone explain to me why, as a woman and mom, I should be happy about this? Genuinely trying to understand what the key issues that make women want him to be president are. I truly just can't understand. I'd love to hear the other side." This person wrote, at the end of the day, were you better off 4 years ago, period. My family makes over $100,000 a year, and I literally feel like I'm drowning. This other person wrote, key issues for me, safety at our borders, increased regulations on food, and getting all the toxic additives banned. Is that something that he's running on? Because I'm also pro that.
I haven't seen that anywhere.
But please do. That
it.
could be a silver lining of this. Improving our relations with other countries.
Okay.
Someone said, if you, quote, see both sides, you'd understand that some women are actually hurting this morning, and instead of, oh, never mind. A lot of people wrote about like protections for IVF, abortion, etc. And how if that's not important to you, then what's wrong with you? Someone wrote, I don't understand how anyone could elect a convicted felon to be the leader of our country. And then a lot of other comments about like, I would never want Kamala to be the leader of our country. She's a woman who broke up a marriage with an affair.
Did you guys feel the same with Clinton when he was getting blowjobs under his desk? I'm just curious.
This person wrote, I too voted for my daughters. I'm working towards freedom of speech for them. I hope the biggest aspirations aren't to abort their children. I live in a state where ninth trimester abortions are legal. And
ninth trimester? It doesn't exist.
That's what this person wrote.
Okay.
Ingrid. And are legal, and they have been the entire time he was previously president. I'm happy that our country will regain its direction. Okay.
Yeah, I've been dying for that. So thank you, Ingrid.
So yeah, just a lot of back and forth about people feeling extremely. Oh yeah, here. Does it not feel wrong voting for a sex offender to be the president? I really genuinely don't understand. This person. Clearly Kamala blundered completely, 15 million less popular votes than Biden. So that's what the women have to say. All women. What was interesting, there were things that were coming out earlier that gave me hope, right? That random ass poll in Iowa. Fascinating. The Iowa poll, I was like, oh.
Fascinating.
Wow, that's interesting. Then, when people first started leaving the polls on Election Day, ABC did an exit poll.
Okay.
How do you feel the way things are going in this country? Does that mean in a bad direction or good direction?
Yeah, like what is your impression of how things are going?
But like, I feel enthusiastic in a good way or bad way?
In a good way. Like, I feel enthusiastic. There's a positive feeling for me.
Okay. How do you feel the way things are going in the country? 7% said they feel enthusiastic. 19% said satisfied. 43% said dissatisfied. And 29% said angry. So 29% of the people in these polls are like, I am not happy with the way things are. Automatically, they're not
voting for a Democrat.
Right. They're not going to keep status quo. Like, right. Kamala is considered the incumbent.
Yep.
And so off the bat, we're not on the ground running. Harris loses ground with Latinos, interestingly. In 2020, 59% of Latino men voted for Biden. This time, 44% voted for Kamala.
She lost ground everywhere.
Yeah. Latino women, 69% in 2020, 62% in 2024, which is fascinating because, like, women specifically, I think Democrats were hoping that women would come out in droves. They
kept saying wives will vote differently than their husbands.
I know. They had that horrible Julia Roberts commercial where she was like, there's no need to tell your spouse. And it was like, this is awful. Who's running the marketing?
I don't know. Well, the hard thing also was her campaign, like we said, she entered the race late. Ergo, her campaign team entered the race late. So they're scrambling just as much as anyone else. Like, it's like being given the hugest end of the year project and you have to assemble a team to do it. But everyone else in the class has 8 months on you. So like the marketing was a little mismatched. The messaging was a little mismatched. We were getting TikToks of her giving recipes, which was like cute and sweet, but like not going to move the needle.
No.
And I was all in. I was all in on Kamala, and I still think she's a really qualified candidate. I don't think the party did her any favors. It was a little confusing for people that we were all in on Biden, and then we pivoted so quickly. Like, how sure can you be about this candidate when it's like when someone is dating someone and they're like, we're definitely getting married. We are getting married. This is the one. And everyone's like, amazing. They seem great. And they're like, no, we are getting married. They're like, cool. And then they break up. And 3 days later, they're like, I need to introduce you to my new boyfriend. He's definitely the one. It's like, we cannot trust you.
Yeah. What do you mean?
How can they both be the one?
Two of them are the one?
It's like, we're all behind Biden. Biden's going to do it. He's the candidate. He's the candidate. Kamala's the candidate. Kamala's the one. It was like, what the fuck?
I know. It's tough because, like, again, the Democrats were in a tough position when Biden decided to run again. He should have just said, I'm a one-term president, which was originally his pitch. But, you know, once someone gets a little taste of power.
Totally.
Had he have not run again, we would have had a fair choice in the matter. But we didn't, and the Democrats propped him up on a stick like the scarecrow that he is.
It's so true.
And shuffled him out onto stages to give speeches, if you can even call them that.
I mean,
how can you say as a Democrat that you're confused how people are voting for someone in Trump who is a threat to this nation? He's not mentally sound. When our original candidate was not mentally sound.
I know.
Our original candidate was...
The man is not well.
Half alive at best.
And did Jill vote red? Is that what that pantsuit was telling us?
I know. You were really reading into it. There was a photo of Jill Biden going to vote yesterday on Election Day. And... she was wearing like a red pantsuit, and Jana was just...
Everyone. I mean, these people do not, they're not new to politics. You would never, why would you wear it's any other color?
I mean, just in terms of like superstition, I asked if Mike would wear blue yesterday, and I put my son in blue.
But that's what I'm saying.
Just like blue vibes. Let's put them into the universe.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little weird. Like, even if she didn't vote for Trump, she was definitely making a statement. Which, what was the statement? Your husband couldn't do it. I'm so sorry.
Right. And then, like, when you see him mumbling in random clips and videos, like, leading up to this election, it's like, is he there still?
I know. I was actually, Tyler and I were talking this morning about it, and he brought up a really good point. It makes me upset because you know how much I loved RBG, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg really fucked us. She kind of was the trickle of Roe, like that, her not stepping down and then unfortunately passing was what gave Trump the runway for Roe v. Wade to be overturned.
Because if she would have stepped down when Obama was president, yes.
They would have appointed a similar justice, which wouldn't have given him the power.
Yes, for sure. And here we are today. The problem is that the Supreme Court was created originally to be like the ultimate system of checks and balances.
Yeah.
And so even though there's 9 Supreme Court justices, it's supposed to be a mix of people's feelings so that you're not so biased one way or the other. Like, it's not supposed to be like fucking rapists like Brett Kavanaugh and evangelicals Amy Coney Barrett. I don't know if she actually is, but like these extreme anti-women's rights weirdos.
Totally.
It's not supposed to be those types of people. You're not even really supposed to know their personal beliefs. It's supposed to be people who represent both sides in a fair way.
It's supposed to be not on their deathbed people. I mean, like, these
Yeah,
are the oldest people in America. I mean, I know it's a...
No, Amy and Brett?
No, but I mean, RBG, it's not, it's like,
Oh.
you're not supposed to stay there until your deathbed. Like, I know it's a life appointment, but like, that doesn't mean till the actual end of life. You don't need to be on a defibrillator.
But also, like, I don't know why term limits would be such a bad idea. In considering what would be fair, I don't want a Supreme Court, and I know probably a ton of really extreme liberals disagree. I don't want a Supreme Court of 7 real, like, extreme liberals on there forever. That is not a system of checks and balances.
No, it's supposed to be a balance. Checks and balances, but it's also supposed to be a balance of people who have a varying degree of beliefs that all get evened out by each other.
Yes.
But when you really look at it, and you sent us a video in our family group chat this morning, the root of this problem is our party, we identify as Democrats, not letting go of power when they really should. RBG wouldn't step down. Biden wouldn't step down. And this death grip on the control is ultimately creating an environment where we lose all of the control.
Yes.
Whoops. Whoopsie.
I'm just going to go through and rattle off some of the facts here in case there's people who
are confused.
The cover of the New York Post today read, "He's done it again."
I mean, clever, but we hate it.
It's official. Voters have elected former President Donald Trump, the 47th president of the United States, well over 270 electoral votes, victories in all the key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Michigan. The 78-year-old has made history being, 1, the first convicted felon, and 2, the oldest person ever to win the White House. He's older now than Joe Biden was when he was elected. Interestingly, he's also the first Republican to win the popular vote in over 2 decades. So his campaign strategy obviously worked. He was courting a coalition of less engaged voters and minority groups, especially Black and Hispanic men, who did not turn out for him the last time. And despite all the Gen Z memes and Vice President Kamala Harris hype, he saw a boost in the youth vote and the what everyone's calling the bro vote, which is young white males who are bros, broy bros.
I mean, here's the truth. You can't deny that this is what the people, when I say the people, I don't mean the people in our lives, but the people want. And that is what a democracy is. Now, whether or not it's the right decision for the future of our democracy remains to be seen. But at a certain point, like, we're the minority, apparently.
And also, I think, like, what's crazy to Democrats is that there are so many things about Trump that just, like, truly cannot be overlooked, such as racist remarks all over the place, him being really old, his mental state, January 6th, his criminal conviction. Like, those are all things that were like, that makes him not such a good candidate.
That doesn't seem right.
But for the people who voted for him, what mattered was, am I in a better place now than I was 4 years ago? And the majority of Americans looking at inflation, mortgage rates, home costs, etc., job rates, they're not in a better place. And so to vote for the same thing when it hasn't really been hammered home from the Democratic Party, what are you going to do to make things different?
Well, that's why I think the big problem was they focused on the moral high ground. They kept saying, like, this is the more moral candidate. And no offense, people who can't feed their families don't give a fuck about morals.
Yes.
I don't need the more moral candidate. I need the candidate who's going to make it possible for my family to survive and thrive and for me to purchase a home and all of the things that, of course, every person in America wants. And so for Democrats to keep riding the morality horse all the way home, they're like, fuck you and your morals. I'm unable to pay my bills.
Right.
Now, I think that's extremely misguided. It's not like Trump's going to get in office and wave a wand and things will be cheaper. Like,
Yeah,
that's obviously not.
Trump also does not give a fuck about people who can't pay their bills.
He does not give one fuck. But he did an effective job at making them feel like he gives a fuck. And that's
more
really
effective than Kamala did.
Yeah, and it's in the numbers. And I was talking to a friend this morning because obviously we all feel really sad and devastated. And the point was brought up, which is a good point. There's a whole sect of America.
There's a whole sect of America.
There's a whole sect of America who, no matter what happened with the election today, they don't have, it's not even a sect, it's the majority of America. They don't have the luxury to like wallow in the loss or really sit with it or be devastated. If Kamala won, they were still waking up and going to their factory job or whatever. And so there's this whole like movement where people are like catatonic over Trump's win. And I think that's what Republicans point to and are like, weak.
I think it's no, for sure. It's those like extreme liberals who are like, I can't get out of bed today. And it's like, well, the majority of people who voted for Trump have to get out of bed because they have to pay their bills.
And they're like, you guys are insane.
Yes.
No matter who won, I had to get out of bed today.
Yes.
And so you're so out of touch with reality. This is why I don't understand you. Like, there was no bridging the gap.
I worry now, though, that the gap between, I mean, it's already gotten so far between the two parties. Like, there's nothing bringing them
together.
There's nothing in between. Like, one party is in Alaska and one is in Florida. Like,
side note, did you know Alaska calls the continental United States the lower 48?
Alaska calls them that?
Yeah.
Meaning like
they're lower than them and they're the 48. I was listening to this podcast and they kept talking about the lower 48. It was from Alaska. And so I Googled it. I'm like, what the fuck is the lower 48? And I'm like, oh.
Like the rest of America?
Yeah, like they'll be like, oh, they're going down to the lower 48.
Oh, that's really random.
Didn't know. Sorry, continue. So one side's in Alaska.
Yeah, one side is Alaska and one side is in Florida. And I don't even know how you get back to the middle. We were talking about how this even started. I actually feel like it started with Obama, and I loved Obama.
Same.
But I feel like those like quietly racist, even people who like were just internally
unknown
racist.
Bias to themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Like they didn't realize they had it. What's it called? Unconscious bias.
Bias. Those people who were not comfortable with a black person being president, I think started like muttering things to one another. And that started a small little brush fire that grew into a forest fire. Like, I think it made talking about the president in an inappropriate way more acceptable. No one used to talk about the president like this. Like, it's the leader of our country, and then like Trump says horrible things. People say horrible things about Trump all the time when he was president. There's no respect.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, he ran again. And so we had 8 years of someone who I loved, but someone who conservatives were not too happy with. And when Trump came out, he like capitalized on that. Like, we're not happy with where we're at. We need to get back to what America is. Like, all of these like racist undertones
Totally.
that spoke to people. Like, people hear what they want to hear. When he's like, make America great again, coming off the Obama years, like,
it didn't read great. I don't disagree with you, but I actually think it starts further back than that. I think as the gap between like the gap between the middle class and the upper classes, like the middle class started to sink a little bit and it became like the lower middle class, the middle class, the upper middle class, as that financial gap grew. And there was this whole group of people, this working class of America, who was working their asses off and continue to work their asses off and didn't feel like they were getting anywhere. They weren't getting the benefits that they deserved. And then they saw, everyone was harping on Obamacare, like why are people getting all these free things? And they felt like they weren't poor enough to get free things and they weren't rich enough to be able to afford things. And they became very disenfranchised and very angry. And so I don't know if that was necessarily a result of Obama's race as much as Obama's policy. I think a white person with that policy probably would have had the same issues. Maybe I'm hopeful, but I think Trump capitalized.
That sounds wishful.
I'm hoping, I'm praying. I think Trump capitalized on that. There was a lot of anger in those groups of people who really were like, fuck us. We're not poor, we're not rich, but we're not moving in the right direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, just generally, if you think about it, people who have enough money to be in the higher tax brackets who are totally fine with their tax money going toward programming and funding for the community and funding for resources for low income people, that just leaves the middle class who's like, like, so they don't have to work as much and they get all this shit for free. That's how, I mean, like, that's not how I feel, yeah. But that is how a lot of them feel. And they're like, I'm working in a factory job every day, but I don't qualify for all of these resources. I'm still being taxed. And wouldn't it be nice to get free diapers every week?
Totally. As really blessed girls, I don't know if you and I have ever said the word factory as much as we've said in this podcast. I keep talking about factory workers too. The factory workers are going to be like, shut the fuck up, guys, on your podcast.
Or whoever.
No,
cops,
totally.
Agreed.
I think, yes. No, it's really created a divide. And I think, and I said this to you, I remember having this conversation with you when Trump was running the first time. There was not enough outreach to those groups. Like, people really counted those groups out. They were talking to the underserved populations a lot about how I'm going to make things better for you and, you know, low income, underserved populations. And then talking to the higher tax brackets about how we're going to help you save more money and what programs are going to come. And that middle chunk of America gets really left behind. I think a candidate who could come in and talk that talk, which is what Trump did as a bullshit ruse, but Mazel, you did a good job on your acting job.
Right.
That's where the success is.
It's just like, I mean, I don't know. When I hear Trump speak, like even in his acceptance speech, it was like, we're going to make America better than it's ever been. America is in a horrible place and they're going to get so much better with me in office. Like, how is this real? What are you talking about?
It's insane. He's a criminal. And I've said that a million times. Anyone else applying for any job with a criminal record that looks like his and the record of running businesses into the fucking ground like his would not be hired. They wouldn't make it past HR.
Well, yeah, I can't remember who said today that every job application should remove
100%
criminal history.
Doesn't matter.
Does not matter. Obviously, you can be the president.
And why can they not vote if you're a convicted felon?
Right.
No, I agree. I think it is absolutely asinine. I think him being president is asinine. I'm not confused about how he got there. That's the disconnect. When I hear other Democrats saying they're so confused how Trump won, I'm not confused at all.
I'm not either. We were both saying before, like, shit feels rocky.
Doesn't feel so good.
No. Just some other election news that's not specifically focused on Trump. Democrats also lost in the Senate. Mm-hmm. Round of applause for.
If we're gonna lose, we're gonna lose it.
We're gonna lose big
all the way.
And abortion measures actually won big in every state except Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota.
Which is good. I saw it was added to the Constitution of New York.
Yes.
Which we love. That's really what drives me the most to panic is female reproductive rights. So that was a little comforting to me.
Yes. But in Arizona, New York, Maryland, Colorado, Missouri, and Nevada, voters protected access to abortion and reinstated abortion rights when in some of those states it was taken away. So that's
good work.
That's some positive news to come out of there. That's probably the only positive news.
And that's where it starts, and that is where it ends, our friends.
I did not even like watch the acceptance speech, the concession speech, nothing, but I heard a clip of it on the news earlier of Kamala's concession speech. She was actually very like,
we'll get through this.
yeah, she was like, this is not over. Like she had her little like chuckle. I was like, how can you chuckle?
How can you chuckle all the time like this?
I mean, she looked exhausted, which
she didn't sleep last night.
No. And she said, you know, I appreciate at least that she's like a person with like respect for being in this position as like someone who was almost elected the leader of this country. Mm-hmm. She gave a speech that was not like putting Trump down. It was just very much like, how can we move forward? And she said, there's an adage a historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars.
That's beautiful.
So
I have hope, weirdly. I have hope that I think, and I understand it, but the rhetoric around this election has made it feel extremely heavy that like this was the election to determine if we have future elections, and it made it feel very intense. And I felt that when I woke up this morning, it felt very dark. And then I had hope that like, no, we are built to sustain things for 4 years. We've been through him being president before. We got to the other side of it. The beauty of him being elected is it's over. He can't run again. We survived January 6th. Like, we have survived 100% of the fucked up things that Trump has tried to do to this country. And we will wake up tomorrow and the day after that and keep fighting for the country we want to live in. And maybe we won't get there on some of the goals, and maybe we'll get there on some of them. And that's it. Like,
the only way you lose is if you don't stay in it.
Totally.
If you stay in the fight, then you can't lose. And so, and I don't think that the fight is like against, it shouldn't be a one side against the other. The fight should be to come back to the middle. Like
100%. We've missed that mark.
Yes. So here's hoping for that. Well, it feels dumb to do a daily dilemma today because today is a daily dilemma in itself. But for the sake of the show, we trudge on.
We'll move forward.
And this is a politically themed dilemma.
Love it.
So this girl posted and said, and this was a few days ago before, so just they didn't know who was going to win or not. But she posted and said, I have a dilemma for all of you. I come from a really liberal family, and I'm pretty liberal myself. And I'm married to a guy who's also pretty liberal, who comes from a liberal family. My husband's sister, so this girl's sister-in-law, has a Finsta account. And for those of you listening who don't know what a Finsta is, it's a fake Instagram account. It's like a burner account. So people will make a fake social media account so that like it's not tied to them at all. They can follow and like pages that they normally wouldn't like under their actual personal profile. And it's just like a way for
you to creep anonymously. Like you can like posts that you wouldn't normally do, creep on people's pages who are public. You can watch their story. They don't know who watched it. It's not that uncommon, although I think it's a little insane.
You don't think it's that uncommon?
I think more people have Finstas than people admit.
Other people also like, there are like a lot of Gen Zers, like high school students or college kids who have Finsta accounts because their parents are now on
their
Instagram. And so they don't want to post like stories of them drinking or like doing crazy shit to an account where their parents would see. So they have a Finsta that like just their friends follow,
and
things
it's
like that.
A name that's so random, like that you would never equate to them.
Right. Yeah. Like Diet Coke lover.
Yes.
229.
Yep.
So anyway, back to the story. This girl, her sister-in-law has a Finsta account that the girl stumbled upon. Let's call her Emily. Our main character is Emily. And her sister-in-law is named
Natalie.
So Emily was hanging out with Natalie, and Natalie was like, oh my gosh, look at this post. And she gave her phone, and it was an account that like she had liked it and it said liked by, and it wasn't Natalie's usual Instagram. And so Emily was like, not to Natalie, but to herself, she was like, what is this? Clicked on it, and it was like a page with no posts, whatever. Like, and you can go on Instagram and see if there's two accounts, and she realized it was her sister-in-law had a Finsta. So she was like, I didn't want to call her out in the moment, because like if you want to
have one, go for
it. But like, okay.
Weird.
So then, you know, she gives her phone back. She goes home and looks up her Finsta to see who she follows. Like, who do you follow on this account that like you don't want anyone to see? And it was a lot of conservative political figures, mainly Trump.
A closeted Republican.
Yes. Classic closeted Republican. And she has liked like a ton of Trump's posts, not just like, but comments on.
She's big in the Trump world.
Yeah, she's knee deep in Trump.
Interesting.
Trump world. And so Emily is posting saying like, I know my husband would be really upset if he found out, because like we have a lot of talks about it. It's like, she was like, our discussions never get heated because we all at least pretend to be on the same page. But she was like, do I say something to him or not? Because it's his sister. And then I worry that like his parents would find out. But it just made me think like, if you found out that someone close to you was like, had been lying to you about being a Trump supporter, and you found out, how would you feel? Like, would that be okay with you? Or
I think it's so interesting because like if she was just an out and out Trump supporter, I'd be like, great. Like, I don't align with that, but I've never subscribed to this, that like you have to cut out people, because this is temporary. Like, this is not going to last forever, and these are your family and friends forever. What is fucked up to me is the duplicitousness of it. Like, you have a fake account, you're partaking in these conversations, pretending to be someone else. Like, it's the lie. It's not the political alignment. I would have to say something to my husband.
You would?
I would.
What if you found out it was like a friend or like a coworker?
I wouldn't care about a friend or a coworker. I'd be like, they're just fucking weird.
You'd be like, you're a weirdo.
Anywho, it was like,
but if it was your husband's sister,
like family, if it was anyone in our family, and not even like you need to call her out, but just like there's something underlying that you're capable of this. You know, like your friends, it's like, okay, like maybe they don't want to engage in politics, whatever. But to sit at a table with your whole family and not feel comfortable enough to like share your true feelings and or feel comfortable lying to them is sketch. It's like serial killer behavior.
I feel like if I found out they had a Finsta at all, I'm not the person who like would just like hand their phone back to them and then like go home and like
I'd be like, huh?
Yeah, I'd be like, what is this Finsta? So like in the moment, like I don't think this would ever even happen to me, because I'm not someone who like
would be like, oh cool, moving on.
Yeah, like if I just like saw something weird, I'd be like, well, that's pretty weird. What's going on?
Nat, what's with this other account?
But I'm also not the kind of person who's like, I can't be friends with someone who's a Trump supporter.
No, me either. It's really the lie. I can't be close to someone who's lying to my face. That's creepy.
Agreed. And like, I can think that their political views are different from mine, but isn't that like sometimes what makes things interesting? Like people having varying viewpoints?
Like, let me know that I disagree with you, and then we can have more interesting conversations. But like, to sit there and be like, totally, and then like,
and then like going on Diet Coke lover and like commenting like, what a hero on Trump's posts. I mean, that's
it's creepy.
It's like a double life.
It's creepy.
Agreed.
I would feel the same way about like if I found out that someone was telling me that they were a vegetarian and then every meal they went out and had meat. I'd be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, like why?
What's going on?
Yeah, no, I agree. So we agree on that. And I think most of America would.
I think that there's going to be a lot more in common than divides us.
I think generally there's a lot more that people have in common than what divides us. And so if we keep that in mind, then we move forward.
We're all Diet Coke lovers at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
That's what brings us together. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not a question mark. This is what the majority of Americans want. And that is why we have this system. That's what America is built on. And I have hope that soon, and by soon I mean in 4 years, we can have bridge the gap and have a more moderate fight that isn't so doomsday, because this felt very heavy and very overwhelming. And I'm not sad that it's over. I'm sad it ended the way it did, but I'm not sad that the entire process is over, because it has felt extremely intense.
I think a lot of people would agree that like
it needed to end.
Yes.
Guys, we're going to be fine.
We're just going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and...
It's fine. It's totally fine.
What are you talking about? It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay, well, I'll call you later.
Sounds good. Love ya.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.